I'm going to, pardon? I'll go and attend to the CEO as soon as I ascend the stage. Sorry about that. I'm going to call Mr. Clemens, the ARC node from Zimbabwe, to come and give us the reflections for yesterday.
Good morning. I think I'll give you some major highlights of yesterday's presentations. Like Shiluva has already mentioned, my name is Clemens Mapika from Zimbabwe. The day started with a presentation from Mr. Ishmael Sunga, who graduated himself to be called a professor. He's from Sakao, he's the CEO of Sakao. He delivered a keynote address during the plenary session, which explored the theme, financing the future, aligning investments with the agri-food systems transformation goals. He reiterated that true transformation means redesigning value chains to be fair and inclusive, where farmers are no longer the poorest link, but empowered as innovators, entrepreneurs, and central drivers of Africa agri-food future. The key highlights from his presentations also included that farmers bear great risk, but reap the least returns. He mentioned also that value chains must be redesigned to be fair and equitable. Farming is now a tech and knowledge-driven profession, meaning modern skills are now essential. He called for farmer-led innovations, better research alignment, and investment in farm organizations. He warned against climate smart systems that still perpetuate poverty. And we also picked from his presentation that there were some he proposed some recommendations, that there are weak institutions limit coordination and implementation. Small farmers lack access to finance and investments. Infrastructure and skills for modern farming are lacking. There is poor policy and stakeholder alignment that blocks planning. Water scarcity and climate change is worsening food and energy. And after his presentation, we had Dr. Kuchwayo from Zimbabwe. The major highlights we picked from his reflections were that agri-food transformation demands a whole of government approach. Infrastructure investment must be cross-sectoral, meaning agriculture, transport, local government, you name it. He mentioned that policies must ensure inclusivity and support for marginalized groups. Farm autonomy and value chain protection, especially for staple crops like maize, white maize. And then we moved to the plenary 7, where we got a presentation entitled Unlocking the Power of the Water, Energy, Food Ecosystem Nexus to Drive Investments and Integrated Solutions for Africa's Agri-Systems Transformation. In that session, the highlights that were coming out were that there's need to strengthen institutions and invest in agriculture to unlock the potential of farmers. Key focus areas included policy alignment, digital technology, training, and collaboration between government, private sector, and other stakeholders. Emphasis was placed on developing infrastructure, skills, and innovative finance tools to drive agri-food systems transformation. And then the key challenges highlighted, which are like recommending as well. The highlights were to strengthen institutions for better coordination and delivery. Use WEFE, which is an acronym for this topic. WEFE Nexus to guide integrated, sustainable investments. Invest in infrastructure, that was another highlight, one of the highlights. Invest in infrastructure skills and digital tools. Align efforts across government, private sector, and partners. Apply climate-smart water solutions in dry regions. And then there are I just picked few recommendations from that which were proposed. The first one is strengthen institutions for better coordination and delivery. Second, use the WEFE Nexus to guide integrated, sustainable investments. Third, invest in infrastructure skills and digital tools. Fourth, align efforts across government, private sector, and partners. The fifth one is to apply climate-smart water solutions in dry regions. Integrated Nexus approach and case studies, which were presented by Dr. Stolle, began by building on the previous overview of the importance of the water, energy, food ecosystems Nexus as a framework. There were 3 case studies, 1 regional and 2 pilot projects in Botswana and Tanzania, which were presented to demonstrate practical applications, successes, and challenges of implementing Nexus principles. The major highlights were that Limpopo Basin faced severe water scarcity with resource over-allocated and limited potential for new supply. Integrated cross-sector collaboration is key to manage competing water demands and climate vulnerability. Community-centered approach in Botswana and Tanzania pilots improved climate resilience and water management. The solar-powered water systems and irrigation enhanced food security, especially in dry regions. One of the the last one of that presentation that we picked was inclusive planning and partnership are essential for sustainable long-term water resource governance. And then a plenary 8, which was just before lunch. It was on tracking and measuring the impact of agri-food system investment. The session focused on key challenges and progress in advancing agricultural policies, investment, impact tracking, climate adaptation and youth employment within Africa's agri-food systems. The key challenges highlighted were impact training lacks integrated qualitative and quantitative data. Indicators are inconsistent. The second point is inconsistent across sectors and governance levels. The third one, government often ignore previous recommendations, weakening accountability. Another key challenge highlighted was that impact tracking is not embedded early in policy processes. And then the last one is to focus remains on abstract metrics instead of real benefits to farmers. That presentation proposed the following recommendations. Use both qualitative and quantitative data for monitoring. Harmonize indicators across sectors and levels for consistency. Embed impact tracking early in the policymaking for accountability. Use data to promote transparency and real change. Measure outcomes that directly benefit farmers and communities. The 3 parallel sessions, parallel session 1 looked at EAC and SADC policy implementation report validation workshop. The presenters there were Fanapan and Agra. This session conducted a technical review, not final validation, of agricultural-related policy frameworks in the East African Community and Southern African Development Community, SADC. Participants highlighted the need for further consultations at national level with inputs from regional representatives and focal points to import the next iteration of the report. The key highlights were frameworks are ratified but not fully implemented. These were the challenges. Most countries lack dedicated funding. Ministries operate with poor coordination. The fourth challenge was monitoring and data systems are weak. The next one was youth inclusion are often symbolic. The other one is no data exists to track youth-specific impact. Then there's another one which looked at newer members, states face instability and slow progress. And then one of the final highlights here is political will to implement policies is low. Proposed recommendations. Frameworks are ratified but not fully implemented. Most countries lack dedicated funding. Then the other one is ministries operate with poor coordination. Monitoring and data systems are weak. Youth inclusion is often symbolic. No data exists to track youth-specific impact. New member states face instability and slow progress. Political will to implement policies is low. Those are the recommendations for session 1 or the parallel session. Parallel session 2, the key points that were picked from there, this parallel session 2, the title is, how can science policy interface better contribute to food security, food system transformation? The presenter is CEA first. The session identified key gaps in coordination and accountability between continental research programs, national priorities, and the private sector, proposing multi-level committees, country-led needs assessment, and transparent funding dashboards as practical solutions to strengthen science policy interfaces for food systems transformation. The key challenges highlighted are as follows: poor coordination between continental funding programs and national priorities, limited visibility, engagement of private sector initiatives, fragmented communication and weak multi-level collaboration, lack of accountability and transparency in funding and project implementation. Recommendations proposed were establish multi-level coordination and committees linking local to continental actors, require country-led needs assessment before finalizing research funding calls, embed open data accountability dashboard in grant contracts to track funds and outcomes, promote civic education and advocacy to broaden understanding beyond funding as solutions. The parallel session 3, which was the final one of the day, the highlight were on the title, leveraging climate information services to drive climate smart agriculture in the SADC region. The presentation was done by Kadesa. This session explored how climate information services can be effectively utilized to promote climate smart agriculture and enhance resilience across the SADC region. The major highlights from that presentation were that many farmers lack timely access to climate information, low literacy limits, farmers' ability to use available data. Policies on climate smart agriculture are poorly enforced. Another challenge from those highlights were that climate variability causes droughts and floods that hurt farming. Regional collaboration on climate information is weak. Recommendations proposed in that presentation were that there's need to improve cooperation between SADC and COMESA. This next one is to create central hubs for reliable climate data. We need to train farmers using simple, accessible tools. And then we need to strengthen policy implementation and coordination. As the day was coming to an end, the closing reflections were that day 3 delivered rich, solution-focused discussions on financing innovation and institutional reform in Africa's agri-food systems. The key sessions underscored the urgency of redesigning value chains to be fair, inclusive, and farmer-led. The water, energy, food systems nexus emerged as the powerful framework for integrated climate smart investment. Stronger institutions, better policy alignment, and improved data systems were identified as critical enablers of impact. Voices from across the region called for youth empowerment, science policy integration, and accessible climate information for all farmers. And then the last point is that the insights from day 3 enforce a growing consensus. Systemic transformation is possible through collaboration, innovation, and accountability. I think these are the highlights for day 3. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Mr. Mapika for the recaps of the day 3. Right now, we're going to our next session, which is the Plenary 9. We'll be focusing on strategic alignment, advancing Africa's priorities in the G20 process. As you might know, South Africa is now is the presidency of the G20. So we're gonna hear from that. So I would like at this stage to call Mr. Bonani Nihodo from the National Agricultural Marketing Council with a round of applause. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am rising on the protocol that was established, and I'm not going to repeat it. So let me check. House Bridget, I would want to welcome you to the stage, and you choose a seat of your choice. Is House Lebohang Butseleng in the room, or a representative of the Food Security Task Force? I am not seeing her. Let me introduce myself, because I think this is the first time many of you are hearing my voice, except on the bilaterals that I have had. My name is Bonani Nyodo. I work for the National Agriculture Marketing Council, and I am the node coordinator of FANPAN in South Africa. And I'm going to be facilitating this session. I would like to request that if the colleagues at the back do have a short presentation that I thought would help us understand in context what the colleagues would be talking about. Do we have it ready, colleagues? The unfortunate part is that I don't get a feedback. So as an economist, I'm not shy of making assumptions. And I know that at times those assumptions are not realistic. Nonetheless, I would make them. I think there is an intervention. Thank you, Puti. Colleagues would know better than maybe I do that South Africa is a sporting nation. It's unfortunate that we lost, the ladies soccer lost to Nigeria. Often we feel very good when we beat them, because we are good rivals. I'm sure colleagues would have seen that we conquered the world when it comes to rugby. Those who feel bad about that, they complain about us doing things they don't like, but we do them within the laws of the game, and we beat them. And so, let me not divert. I thought I would do a short presentation in respect of South Africa's presidency of the G20. And I said it is ours as the continent of Africa. You would be reminded that the G20 was formed in 1999 after the financial crisis of 1997 as an informal gathering of ministers of finance and governors of central banks of a number of industrialized countries and developing countries. In 2009, it changed into the level of the heads of states and government. And that was after the 2007 financial crisis. It does not have permanent staff or secretariat, which means the hosting country needs to establish committees or a system that it would work to deliver this. I have highlighted the two the crises. I don't know what you call them when they are two, but two. And I was thinking that the change, or at the heart of the establishment of the G20, was coordination of policies in response of shocks. And I was reminded of Newton's first law of motion. those who remember it, that an object that is stational will remain stational, or an object that is moving will move in the same direction, same speed until acted upon by an external force. Thus the concept of inertia. So the two disrupted the system and led to the establishment and change of the G20. South Africa's presidency of the G20 is themed solidarity, equality, and sustainability. And colleagues would be reminded that all of these, or the three, are considered in context of Ubuntu, which says umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. And the DG, when he started, outlined this. So we started our presidency in November 2024, taking from Brazil. And in November, we are supposed to be handing over to the United States. So the three countries, the past president, the current president, and the upcoming work together. So the expectation or the outlook of South Africa's G20 presidency is composed of the three task forces. You are welcomed, and may you please join Sis Bridget on the stage. He's going to talk about the Food Security Task Force. There are Sherpas that are coordinated by the Department of International Cooperation and Relations, and it's 13 of them. We have the finance track that has 8 commitments. We have engagements of the non-government actors. We have 11 of those. And there are meetings and engagements of each of these happening concurrently. I've spoken about the past president, the current president, and the next to consist what is called within the G20 as Troika. These countries are supposed to assist the current to convene the discussions of the G20. And in terms of how the meetings are composed, you have members of the G20, you have a list of invited countries, and a list of invited international organizations that participate in the meetings of the G20. And in terms of what is expected of the agriculture Sherpa track, are 3 things. Is a communique of the Food Security Task Force. It's not yet there. The draft is there, is going through the processes. Is a declaration of the Agriculture Working Group. It's not yet there. The draft is there and is being processed. And we have achieved that. And perhaps we need to give a round of applause to the continent for having achieved a communique on the meeting of agriculture chief scientists. Let's do that. Our Bridget will talk about that. There are 4 priority areas of the Agriculture Working Group. And you would see in terms of where are they premised from, and you would see that what we have there is find expression in the SDGs, Agenda 2063 and the CADEP. And those are promoting policies and investments that drive inclusive market participation and support low income and resource poor farmers, empowering youth and women in agri-food systems, fostering innovation and technology transfer, building climate resilience, for sustainable agriculture production. I'm going to leave this one of Max because Max is represented. And I'm going to leave the one of the Food Security Task Force because the Food Security Task Force is represented. At this stage, I was reminded of the national anthem of the Republic, where we say, Nkosi Sikelel' Africa. I think it is time where, when you think of it, it resonates, because there are lots of, as I've said from Newton's law, of forces from outside that would shake the foundations of what we are. But in terms of how life should be, we should not disappear. We need to find ways of surviving. At this point, I'm going to welcome, you know, in South Africa and where I grew up, if a person is of, in terms of generational, is a big sister or what, and if I'm not too professional, my apologies, I'm being myself. And when I call Aus Bridget, Sis Bridget, I'm being an African in a platform that's formal without being very bad. Sis Bridget, I think please come to the floor and help the colleagues understand what Max was all about. But remember, I've said we have achieved on that one. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues, once again. I'd like to also stand on existing protocols. As already introduced, my name is Bridget. My surname is Murobi. I am the Manager for International Relations at the Agricultural Research Council of South Africa. I stand here this morning on behalf of our President and CEO of the Agricultural Research Council, who could not join us this morning due to other commitments, and he has sent his greetings and assurance of his commitment to the collaboration that we have ongoing. I'll be giving you feedback in terms of what the MEX was about as part of this G20 presidency under the agriculture chapter, and I'll also be talking about what led to this achievement. The program director was talking about, saying that as for the MEX, we have already achieved. We had a meeting of the MEX, which is the meeting of agricultural chief scientists. This was staged in Limpopo in May, and then I'll be taking you through the before, during, and the after, and including the follow-up activities that we have put together. This is just the outline in terms of, I was just trying to check how you are seeing the slides. I see the screen is looking the other way. I'll talk to you about briefly what the MEX is about for those that are maybe not aware. The road that we took towards the May event, how the meeting was structured, some of the principles that guided the engagements there. And we have what we call the communique, or the declaration that was adopted at the MEX meeting, and it is summarized according to the themes that we had put as the presidency, and then the conclusions in line with what was achieved, and then the next steps. Just in terms of the overview, the MEX is the initiative of the G20 agricultural ministers. Like the program director was saying, is part of the initiatives within the agricultural working group leading up to the ministerial for agriculture. And then this is where there is coordination of agricultural research systems. This is where the ministers rely on to get evidence to support some of the policy issues that they are putting through or they're adopting, or the actions or initiatives that they want to come up with as a collective. And this is where there is a lot of exchange of information, exchange of solutions, joint development of these solutions to address issues of agriculture, food systems, transformation, and the like. And I would like to just say that we were happy as the Agricultural Research Council that the Department of Agriculture could designate us as the chair of the MEX for this year on behalf of the presidency. And just in terms of where we have come from or some of the things we have done, maybe in the room there might be some of the representatives that were part of the consultative processes which FANAPAN has facilitated on behalf of the presidency. They've already said in the past few days that they have a strength of convening, so they've helped us in convening the dialogues for different regions in the continent. Also the one in South Africa, wherein these 6 thematic areas, which I'll show you in a bit, were being consulted, and the output that we are talking about, that this is already achieved. A lot of you in the room has contributed to that, and those that are not in the room, but we know that they'll find a word in terms of the endorsed communique that we managed to get through their inputs. And then I would like to also say that we had a lot of national and international knowledge partners which contributed to this communique, contributed to some of the technical sessions that we were holding there to lead to the discussions on the communique. And we also had, since we were being hosted in Limpopo, we also had strong involvement from Limpopo province, and different role players took part in the proceedings, preparatory and also during the event. And just in terms of some of the guiding principles that we had, of course, like the program director has said, that we were drawing from the themes of the agriculture working group, which were guiding us in terms of the MEX, because we needed to give the evidence to support some of the ongoing discussions that are being done at ministerial level, at deputy ministers level. So the themes were aligned with the themes of the agriculture working group. And then there was also strong alignment with the global agenda, in particular the SDGs, the Agenda 2063. And there was a lot of advocacy for the issues of Africa, the priorities of Africa, so that we can be able to get this reflected in the communique, which is what we found or we achieved at the end of the meeting. And then these are just the themes or the areas which we focused on for the MEX meeting. The first one was on transformation of agri-food systems. The second one was reinforcing climate-smart agriculture for resilience in food systems. We had stewardship of biodiversity, genetic and natural resources. We had the fourth one as building resilient agricultural bioeconomies in Africa. We had soil health and sustainable management. And the sixth one was digital agriculture and adoption of 4IR technologies. These were the 4 themes that we put forward as the presidency, drawing from all the different discussions and collaborations, partnerships, all the things that are of importance for the continent. Those were the things that we were putting forward, and they got endorsement from the G20 collective. And just so you know, some of the colleagues in the room have been part of the meeting. We had the 3-day as a format for this meeting, wherein the first day was mainly the opening session where a lot of political principals participated from national and provincial departments. And then we also had a number of sessions, like I said, in line with the themes that we had prioritized. We had a couple of technical sessions, and then we also had the opportunities for the interventions by different delegates to contribute to the issues that we had put on the table. We also had scientific demonstrations to showcase what science we do in the nation. We also had exhibition site wherein we were showing more of the science that we do, and the different exhibitors came to do the exhibitions. We also had quite a dedicated time to go through the communique before it was endorsed, just to make sure that all member delegates reflect on the issues that they'll want to be included. And the negotiations went into the third day, wherein we managed to get the adoption, and we also managed to take them to some site visits that were organized. And then in terms of the communique itself, it is already in the public domain. Those that have not yet seen it, they can download it and go through it, but I'll try to make some justice and give you just the essence of what is in the communique in terms of what was reflected, and some of you will find most of the issues resonating with the discussions that have been done here since Monday, and you'll see that a lot of them are reflecting, showing that a lot of us have made contribution towards this communique. As we were then talking, maybe just to check in terms of the preamble, some of the issues that were captured in the preamble of this communique. It was aspect around challenges and need for transformation in global agriculture and food systems. And this is where there was a lot of reflection about the pressures that agriculture is facing, a lot of losses from biodiversity loss, some of the challenges that are being brought by climate change, which we are facing as a sector, and some of the areas where we need to take action. There was a lot emphasized regarding the transformation that we need to embark on. It must be sustainable. So there was a lot of issues talking about some of the goals, like I was saying, the SDGs, the Agenda 2063, some of the alignments in terms of how do we make use of this communique or the plans that we are making here to achieve on the other global agendas or goals. And in terms of the innovation approaches and technologies for sustainable agriculture and nutrition, there was a lot of emphasis on farming practices that are sustainable or should be sustainable. There was a lot of talk on precision agriculture, on regenerative approaches, and a lot of emerging agricultural technologies were cited as having potential to contribute to this sustainability as far as transformation is concerned. There was also a lot of emphasis on what do we do to ensure economic growth, what do we do to ensure regional agricultural development. So those aspects were fully reflected in the communique. And there was also a focus on bridging science, policy, and society, inclusive innovation and stakeholder engagement. And here there was a lot of issues on inclusive stakeholder engagement. There was a lot of if you can check, you'll see there's a lot of text also that is talking about the inclusivity, how do we bring in different partners, even different farmers into the discussions when it comes to innovation and also policy development. There was also aspects of integration of indigenous knowledge, and a lot of talks have gone into that, and there is a lot of actions that have been proposed in achieving that. And there was also focus on cross-sectoral research. There was a One Health approach mentioned as needing a lot of collaboration from across sectors, role players. There was also aspects of collaborative knowledge systems, and here a lot of emphasis or calls were made to different partners to come on board and bring what they have towards solving some of the challenges that we have. And in terms of the stewardship, which is one of the thematic areas, stewardship of biodiversity, genetic and natural resources. On this one, there was a lot of time given to recognize the challenges that we have as far as biodiversity is concerned, the global concerns, and the scientific solutions for the natural resource decline, as we are getting a lot of losses as far as resources, natural resources is concerned. These issues were reflected here to check what is the impact of this resource decline, what are the approaches that can be promoted as far as conservation and sustainable use of these resources. And there was also aspects touching on the soil, land degradation issues, as we are talking about the loss of natural resources. And there was also discussions or commitments as far as international commitments are concerned, because a lot of delegates called for context-specific approaches as far as biodiversity management is concerned, and this is where a lot of international treaties that are being recognized can contribute to this, where there was a call to support the work of those international treaties. There was a lot of calls to support this ongoing biodiversity commitments, and of importance was that it was also noted that some of the countries are maybe signatories to some commitments, some are not signatories to some treaties, and they kept emphasizing that according to national circumstances. But whichever treaties you are members to, you should then support the goals or the initiatives there, so that it can overall lead us to the protection of biodiversity. And then in terms of the nature-based solutions, indigenous knowledge, I already said earlier on, there was also emphasis on this, but also tied to biosecurity measures that can be promoted. The value of indigenous knowledge, like we were saying the past few days, it was also overemphasized. And just in terms of the second theme, which was focusing on soil health and sustainable management, some of the issues that were raised and emphasized in the communique were speaking to unsustainable agricultural practices. How do we then move from that so that the soil can be well managed, it can be sustainable, it can carry even the future generations. The aspects of deforestation or clearing of forests that is linked with agricultural development were highlighted to say, can the sector then come up with better ways around the deforestation issues. And there was also aspects of climate change to do with maybe as the patterns change, the floods, the soil gets degraded and things like those. So we are saying, can we put our heads together in a collaborating manner so that we can protect the soil while we are dealing with all the challenges that we have. And in this, there was also aspects of the efficient use of fertilizers. It was deliberated at length, and there are some proposals that were put there. The aspects of water management were also raised in supporting the soil health and soil management. And also in terms of the policy frameworks, monitoring and investment for soil health restoration, there was also calls for investments to support this work. There was calls for integration of policy frameworks that can support this work. And there was also a need to support the farmers and to also raise awareness, and there should be initiatives that are done targeting that or improving what is already ongoing as far as advisory services is concerned, so that we make sure that they have soil that can carry what they want to achieve. And in terms of the climate smart agriculture for sustainability and resilience, we had issues that speaks to global population growth and the effects of climate change and the role that climate smart agriculture innovations could play in helping us ensuring food security and nutrition. And then there was also a lot of issues around the access as far as this innovation are concerned to all the farmers and all role players. And there was also within this climate smart agriculture theme, the aspects of research, the aspects of finance and resources to support adaptation and mitigation. And here we were talking about some of the climate actions that are already known, just like with the biodiversity protection, that the UNFCCC would have those initiatives which different members were urged to support. But there was also an aspect of financing access as far as climate adaptation and mitigation is concerned. And in terms of the collaboration, knowledge integration, there was also emphasis on this theme that there should be international collaboration. Partners must come together or continue to come together and share lessons and have joint development of some of the solutions that will benefit all of us as a collective. And there was also emphasis on the policy coordination, the training for capacity building of farmers. They were particularly mentioned. And there is also the strengthening of the policy coordination, and which is the issues we've been talking about this week. And on the theme that was focusing on building resilient agriculture-based bioeconomies, on this one, there was a lot of support for integration of indigenous knowledge and use of indigenous knowledge systems here. There was also a call to empower the primary producers, the holders of some of this indigenous knowledge, to make sure that they also benefit from these innovations that come out of the knowledge that they have. But there was also emphasis that there should be sustainable bioeconomy development, so that we also take care of the other aspect of biodiversity protection or conservation. And there was also on this one the aspects of investments and partnership and intellectual property rights protection. There was also a call that maybe the public-private partnerships will help us more in this space, and it should be encouraged. And just on the theme that was focusing on digital agriculture and fourth industrial revolution technologies, on this one, there was emphasis on the fact that the transformative potential of digital technologies and addressing the climate divide. And here we are saying that there should be a lot of focus to address this digital divide, as much as we are saying there is potential which industrial revolution brings also to the sector. But we are saying, may we not leave some of the producers behind, some of the farmers behind, and may we communicate these benefits to all concerned, and also have collaboration as far as going together in getting the benefit from these digital technologies. And there was also the aspect that some of the digital infrastructures needs expanding, and as we also talk about investments, it is also aimed into that. There was also an aspect of responsible data governance as far as the use of AI is concerned, and that there should be governance whenever it is being used, even in our sector. And maybe just to wrap up, as the communique, we were also emphasizing towards the end that there should be independence of science. The scientists must be given a room to do science and then be able to bring this evidence to the policymakers. And there was overemphasis on collaboration. There was a lot of talk about inclusivity, that we must continue making sure that we bring whoever that can contribute something into the work that we are doing. We must promote innovation, and our principle of Ubuntu as the presidency, it was emphasized again to say, can it be the one that unify all of us so that we can all be because others are. And like it was mentioned that we have achieved in terms of getting the communique endorsed by the G20 members, and we were really happy because in the last 3 years the G20 presidencies for MEX could not get a consensus on the communique. And as South Africa, we managed to get that. We were happy that we could do that, and we believe that we managed to get a lot of issues that are of priority to the continent, to get them adopted into the communique. And maybe that one deserves a round of applause from the room that we managed to do that. And just in terms of next steps, did I go too fast? Okay. In terms of next steps, we are going to be continuing as the presidency to engage with different partners on the issues that we were talking about for the different thematic areas, to make sure that we drive some of these initiatives for the benefit of the continent. There are some of the things we have put forward, the knowledge platforms, the knowledge hubs, knowledge exchange hubs. Some of the initiatives will be driving them, and will be looking out for forming these partnerships and driving this work. But we are also looking forward to the ministers' meeting in September that will be deliberating on the declaration for agriculture for the ministers. I have our team with us, program director, so that if there are questions, I think we have more than 5 colleagues of the ARC that are at this table, and FANAPAN, who were all part of this process. And should there be any specific questions, we can all take in turns. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, House Bridget. That was a mouthful. Let's give her another round of applause. At this point, I'm going to ask Acting DDG Lebohang Butseleng to come and talk about the Food Security Task Force. And colleagues, let's, can we put the presentation? So we are, the National Agriculture Marketing Council is an institution of the department. So by the time the acting DDG comes here, I hope the presentation will be there. Otherwise, you risk a lot for the NAMC boot.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bonani, and good morning to everyone in the room. I am Lebu Butsileng, as introduced from the Department of Agriculture. I'm still struggling to say the name of my employer because 3 months ago, we were Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. And with the advent of the new administration, we have been delinked with agriculture. So my tongue is still used to the old song of agriculture, land reform and rural development. Nonetheless, we are appreciative of this opportunity as the department to come and present on the country's presidency, particularly around the area of agriculture working group and the food security task force. I think my two colleagues have already done the bit on the agriculture working group and the meeting of the chief scientists that was hosted by our agency again, Agricultural Research Council. We will be very brief on this one on food security task force, and as a way of introduction, we re-emphasizing that not only for the country, and that has been our approach. We don't know how perfect or how grounded we were in that approach of ours, to say in as much as is South Africa presiding over this, our language should be African presidency, and we should, as much as we can, verge one voice of the issues or the policy aspects that we are bringing forth. And we're starting off by acknowledging that food security has been identified as one of the high-level priorities for the country's G20 presidency. And we take precedence from the fact that the right to adequate food is fundamental to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is also a global phenomenon, the issue of food affordability and accessibility. And even though the world produces more than sufficient food to feed the humanity, we still are faced with the problem of food insecurity, particularly at household level, which I guess in the room there are policymakers who would articulate this better than I would do myself. But one of the key drivers that particularly around this food security task force we were focusing on is the commodity price shocks that of course trigger that food inflation and the affordability and accessibility aspect of it. And you will get that when we get to the actual focus of the studies for this task force, that we realize that over-reliance on global markets and for food affect the protection of the consumers from market-related shocks, which is also even at the global level. And this was also affirmed only last week when the SOFI report was released, the State of Food Security and Nutrition report by the FAO, that still today 720 million people still go to bed hungry, and over and above that, about 2.6 billion people are unable to afford nutritious or healthy diets. And we will not be able to talk about food security when we leave the nutrition part aspect of it out. What is our approach as a country in as far as this specific Food Security Task Force is concerned. We start from the basis that says we will build on the existing G20 other countries that presided over G20, and we're citing here the Brazilian Global Alliance on against hunger and poverty to say, in as much as this global alliance against hunger and food and poverty, in the Brazilian instance was at a national program, there is still learning for South Africa, in as much our focus is more on global and regional aspects of this food security. And we also would be basing most of our policy direction on the Indian Deccan high-level principles on food security and nutrition. And we are also cognizant of the fact that South Africa is also presiding over the Food Security Committee, and there are policy aspects that will emerge from that we will not in any case overlook. We will work from those. And the recent UN food system stock taking that took place only last week in Addis, there are also some recommendations that came forth from those, that as the Food Security Task Force, as we consolidate and synthesize and come up with recommended policy baskets, those are some of the bases that we will be taking a cue from. And we are also looking at the approach of this task team is both global and regional and sub-regional, so that whatever we come up out of with this, it will be also considered at a regional level. And I think this slide, if I were to summarize, this is our main slide. The Food Security Task Force focuses on 3 studies. And the one study looks at the analysis of the global macroeconomic factors and the key drivers that are impacting global commodity prices. And that will include your volatility, your domestic food prices, affordability, and accessibility. And what the approach was, in as much as these studies our leads, or we are depending on those international knowledge partners to develop these studies for us, in order not to lose as a continent beyond 2025, when the G20 presidency would have gone to another country, US in this instance, we should pair these international experts with local partners so that that institutional memory may still remain in the country and in the province, and though not province, but in the country. And those are the partners that we have paired these international knowledge partners with. Your National Agricultural Marketing Council, where the moderator of this session comes from, the South African Institute of International Affairs, and the Institute of Economic Justice, and the African Climate Foundation. Those are the in-country or local partners that are working with FAO for this study number 1. Study number 2, which is a little bit rocky, especially from the South countries, the one on exploring the feasibility of various commodity prices and the stabilization techniques at regional and global level. This one we are assisted by United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, and they are assisted by University of Massachusetts, and those I will not really necessarily read them in the interest of time, those in-country partners that are working with them. And I think that the study that will be more of interest to the room is the 3rd study that also this task force is focusing on, is exploring the food security policy instruments and food systems approaches that will be more effective and climate resilient. And we are also assisted by FAO there and IFAD to conduct that study. And if you were to ask us, where are you with these studies and what will these studies bring at the end of the day, the ultimate intent is for these studies to remain and be the repository into the continent's policy baskets, or to form as a baseline for some of the policies that will emerge. And currently, all these international experts and the in-country partners have already produced preliminary reports, which we will synthesize, and they will find home in the ministerial communique that for the ministers meeting, G20 ministers meeting in September. And the deliverables over and above the communique that we will produce out of this is we also want to leave as a legacy food security policy instruments that will talk to the food systems that are more sustainable and climate resilient, not only at the regional level and global, as this is the pillar or the approach of the task force. And the G20 high-level principles on food commodity stabilization techniques, that is one of the deliverables that over and above the communique that will be the end product of all the processes, this will be the attachments or the policy documents that we will be remaining with. And as far as how will this task force advance the African food security narrative beyond this time that we are in, we as a summary of the slide, we are saying we want and wish to verge a common African position in as far as these resilient food systems and food security policies will come forth. As such, and we are very grateful AU is part of the discussions around this, and we hope also that they will be the main stakeholder in making input into the communique that will be discussed by the ministers in September. And this task force really wish to bridge the often segmented approaches to food security, focusing both at national and regional level, and to complement, like we indicated, even existing policies that emerged from previous G20 presidencies. One of the emerging policy recommendations, and I must state upfront that this is still at a very draft level because we pulled out and synthesized this from preliminary reports that are not yet finalized, but also still to emphasize the fact that we wish this to be an African presidency. Month end, the end of this month, we will be hosting this Food Security Task Force meeting physical, and it will be hosted in the soil of Africa in Cairo, Egypt, just to try and extend beyond the borders of South Africa and be inclusive as we can as we advance synthesizing and pulling out those emerging policy recommendation. And the one that we already have pulled out from the preliminary report is on measures that will help to prevent, reduce, and mitigate consequences of food price volatility, which is one of the study areas that this task force is looking at. And that will look at strengthening the resilient and inclusive food production systems, and including even the financing of these food systems, taking into consideration your blended financing model as one of those models that are emerging as way of helping farmers, particularly women and youth and people and vulnerable groups, and pursue a sustainable productivity growth, focusing so much on research and development to increase market integration as we pursue this inclusive and sustainable food systems. And of course, coming up with common climate-informed stock holdings that will assist and advanced risk planning in as far as the food security and food systems are concerned. The second policy recommendation that we pulled out is around the measures that we need to ensure to effectiveness of food security policy instruments and sustainable food systems. And it still also takes us to the issue of food security that is nutrition aware and nutrition sensitive, and that is supportive of climate resilient measures. and strengthening cross-sector policy coherence. And I must say again, in our interactions with the member states and even stakeholders that are assisting us in synthesizing this report, it has become very evident that countries that do have, because in food security you'd appreciate that is multi-sectoral or multi-departments, where you would have your Department of Social Development for social nets, your Department of Health. But countries that have established interdepartmental or interministry food security councils seem to be handling this issue of, like, inclusive and sustainable food systems better. Is one of the learning that even going ahead of ourselves is coming very clear. That is one of the lessons, that having that council at a country level that will include, or even at a continental level, that will include all these key ministries that are responsible, that will bring in the nutrition aspect of it, that will bring the social inclusivity of it, of this food security, comes to be one of the learning that we can take home with. And the other one is the issue of trade and market integration, and having one voice even when there are climate shocks, that when it is communicated, there is one messaging that incorporate all the key policy aspects, and even strengthen environmental sustainability. And that brings us to the end, moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Aus Butzeling, for that presentation. Thank you very much, Aus Bridget, for the presentation. Maybe one thing I should indicate. So the process is each of the deliverables. The task force makes agriculture working group needed to produce an issue note. The issue note had to have the priority areas identified. The first meetings of each of these discussed the issue notes and the priority areas. After that, the food security task force then initiated the process of the studies. The studies, the preliminary studies, were presented to members of the G20. So it's not preliminary studies that are seated with South Africa, it's studies that were presented to the G20 member countries. We have received inputs, synthesized, and a draft communique has been put together and is being processed to be forwarded. The Agriculture Working Group did have a meeting in Durban, as well as the food security, presented the priority areas, consolidated the inputs, shared the draft declaration with member countries, received inputs, convened a virtual meeting. The countries engaged the declaration, then consolidated those, sent out to the countries. We are going to have negotiations. So it's a process, and it's a bit painful. I'm sure they will tell you that you sit on a paragraph that is 4-lined for 45 minutes with comments coming from all over about where some are comfortable, others are not, and you still have, as a presidency, to find a point of convergence, which the DG normally calls the sweet spot. He calls that. At this point, I would like to open the floor for comments, compliments, and perhaps questions, if there are questions. I would be able to see the hands. I'm looking around, and it's innocent faces. Is that an indication of clarity? If that is, maybe I should then, on your behalf, probe the colleagues so that you get the benefit of how you can influence some of the things that are discussed at this platform. Maybe let me start with you, Ausbutseling. In terms of the invited regional bodies that may be accessible to colleagues here, which ones would you advise that colleagues should interact with? Because those regional bodies do receive the communication, and they may be the point of entry for members of this meeting.
Thank you so much, Bonani, for that question. And I think it's a very important question. Like we indicated, our wish is not to end up with this deliverables or policies that are just there and no one identifies with them. From the food security point of view, and I would say as well for the agriculture working group, our main depository has been the AU office, as the would be representative of most of the the member states of AU. But in as far as maybe regionally, I would believe that most of the countries here, African countries here, in the region and in SADC, okay, thank you, would have your country food and agriculture organization country officers, would have your research units. I would not, Bonani, be able to list all the organizations that when the Sherpa has ratified our documents, we would know. I would not know them at the top of my head, which are those that the Secretariat. But the willingness and the appetite to want to circulate our documents as much as we can for inputs is more than welcome.
Thank you very much, Ausbutseling, for that. Maybe, Sis Bridget, with the communique of Max having been finalized, what are some of the areas where members of the continent may find to be helpful in working with the ARC?
Thank you so much. As I've said in my okay. Thank you. As I said in my conclusion, that the communique has been adopted, and it talks about a lot of plans, a lot of initiatives. There are a lot of calls for collaboration. There are a lot of calls for co-development of solutions. And as the ARC, on behalf of the presidency, would like to keep the momentum from the discussions at the MEX to jointly craft some of these initiatives. There are a lot of calls for knowledge systems, exchange systems, training and capacity building programs. There are hubs that are being proposed there. So the ARC stands ready to engage with partners in the continent and beyond to come up with some of this, and some of them, they may become in the future, they may become initiatives of the G20 moving forward. And some of them can still be initiatives of the continent. Some of them can support the Agenda 2063 and other structures, but we are standing ready to collaborate, and we'll also be reaching out to partners to help us in coining some of these initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, House Bridget. I knew that at a certain point the hands will come up, and I'm very happy that the first hand comes from a young fellow from Zambia. You are recognized, Boot.
Good morning, dignified dignitaries. My name is Chikondi Mbewe from Zambia, And my question is directed to Ms. Beatrice Murovi. During your presentation, one subtopic which really excited me or took my eye was the soil health and sustainable management. And during this subtopic, you jotted down or you mentioned some challenges that Africa is facing. And some of the challenges that you mentioned were climate change, deforestation issues, and unsustainable agriculture. And one of the questions that you posed in your presentation was, how can we move away? Now, knowing very well that with urbanization and issues like that, there's always a conflict. Together with agriculture, there's always a conflict between forest and the agriculture. Meaning the more we cut trees, the more we get to have climate shocks, because we understand that trees act as our lungs of the globe. Maybe the question is, what solutions or deliberate moves or deliberate policies is Africa putting in place for us to see to it that these challenges are no longer affecting us in future? Thank you.
I see the hand of Prof. Maiwashe, and I know he's not going to ask a question. He's going to be responding to that question. Prof?
I am going to disappoint and say I'm going to ask a question. Okay, my question is around, maybe it's not just meant for the panelists, but to everybody here, to say this being an opportunity and a platform, this G20 process, and the way I understood it is that a country becomes a president for a very short space of time. And my question is around keeping the momentum, as it seems that the country that is a president has some kind of freedom to propose new priorities. So given that we have this dialogue here, how do we then think about influencing the G20 process beyond the spotlight that is on the country, in terms of the agents that are on the ground, to say these thematic areas, how are we going to make sure that they feed into sustainable and processes that will outlive the presidency? And as I've indicated, this is not the question for the panelists, but this is the question for all of us to say, while we had our 15 minutes of spotlight, how do we make sure that it becomes long-lasting?
Thank you very much for that, Prof. And I do not see an additional hand. And with that, okay, there's a hand at the back. You are recognized.
Yes, hello. My name is Guido Geister from the African Union Commission. I have a question to the two participants. Because we have a comprehensive strategy now for the next 10 years, how did this, particularly the strategy and action plan, feature in your discussions, in your deliberations about food security, but as well on with the chief scientists? What role did it really play? Did it play a role, or did it? Well, how was it? Because I see a lot of areas which are similar, and we discussed this very extensively in technical working groups. So how much did you actually draw on these discussions we had last year? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So 2 questions, one from Zambia, another from the African Union. And I'm not sure in which order would you want to take the question, but it looks like you are ready, Bridget.
Thank you. Prof, you disappointed me. I thought you were going to take the question also. But just to respond to the gentleman at the back, it's just that I might not be able to say the exact name, but there is a program that the AU is running on soil health and soil management. There is a program that they are running. It's continental, and regional bodies are part of them. A lot of countries are participating in that program. And these issues of deforestation, the clearance of forest, balance of agricultural development, urban development, they are being covered there, and there are recommendations that they are proposing. There are initiatives that they are coming up with. Some countries are already piloting some of the initiatives, and maybe through FANAPAN we could find a way to share with the delegates here some of the initiatives that are ongoing, so that if some would want to join those AU level initiatives, they can already be a part of them. But that also ties with the question on the involvement of the AU. They've been very involved. When I was saying a lot of the discussions we were talking about here, you'll see a lot of it reflected in the communique, because a lot of people here, or their colleagues, or their organizations, or their countries have made contribution. There was a lot of consultations. I mentioned that there were consultative dialogues with FANAPAN helped us to do, and the AU was one of the organizations. As we are saying, this is a continental G20 presidency. They were fully consulted, and they gave a lot of inputs on different aspects, and hence you could relate with a lot of issues that are here. And the consultations will also continue in terms of the follow-up work that we would like to pursue as the continent, and see how do we align maybe with even existing initiatives like I mentioned the soil one, because even along the themes that I've mentioned, there are already existing initiatives in the continent, and we'll pick up on some of those and see which ones we can magnify with a lack of a better word. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. The question from Prof around what is not only the department that is coordinating this working group and the task force, but as the region, or as the continent, what is it that we're going to do in keeping the momentum? My view is, even not only here we're talking transforming agri-food systems, we're talking food security, but the ideal is, I don't know how many working groups are in the country, and as far as the South Africa presidency is concerned, I know there are 3 task forces. But the ideal was for all these working groups and the task forces to compare notes, so that those that have got policy responsibilities on those, they take them forth, not only develop those policies, but even ensure the implementation thereof. I was very impressed, which of course the CEO of FANAPAN is a commissioner. They met us from the Agriculture Working Group and the Food Security Task Force and says, is either we as this specific task force, not task force, but working group, input on your communique, reinforce our responsibility at a country level, that we take you accountable to follow through and implement that, or us as a different working group from agriculture, we recognize you in our communique. Then that will be a legacy beyond 2025 and many years to come. But if the agriculture in their silo sit there, and we're going to have concluding policy recommendations here, and they are ours. Not everything that will be recommended here will be solely our responsibility. But if there can be that exchange of those and are documented in the different ministerial summits that will not summits, ministerial meetings that will be taking place from now until November, that will take the country somewhere. And if you listen of many countries that hosted G20, everywhere you go, you'll hear of the Brazilian Global Alliance Against Food and Hunger. You'll hear of the Indian Deakin High Principles. I believe that even beyond 2025, there should be a legacy project or a legacy policy depository that we will remain it. Sitting here, I cannot point at one, because from the Food Security Task Force, we're still talking preliminary reports that still needs to be synthesized and put into the communique. The question from the AU Commission around how do we, in all this work, how do we include people on the ground, and how are they going to benefit from this process, if I got that question correct. I was also very grateful the B20, the business, that is a forum for the business for the G20 in South Africa, is also consulting all the working group to say, tell me how much budget you have. You, as the public sector, you will not be able to see through your G20 priorities and deliverables. But if they are interlinked also with the business priorities, they will be able to co-finance some of the deliverables and the projects before. So for me, more than the policy baskets, more than the techniques that will come from there, is the coordination of those resolutions, so that different sectors would be able to take responsibility of their findings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please help me appreciate the work they have done. At this point, we come to the end of this session and beyond. I'm sure you have the contacts of the FunPan Secretariat. Should you want to liaise with us, feel free. Thank you very much. Over to you, Kanto. I'm told we should have our minute of fame with a picture. Thank you very much.